Many people, both inside and outside the church, wrestle with a persistent question. They read the Old Testament and encounter a God who appears angry, demanding, quick to judge. Then they turn to the New Testament and meet Jesus, who speaks of love, forgiveness, turning the other cheek. This stark contrast leads them to a troubling conclusion. The God of the Old Testament and the God of the New Testament seem like two entirely different beings. This perceived split is not a minor theological quibble. It strikes at the very heart of the Christian faith, creating confusion and distrust. It can make the Bible feel disjointed and contradictory. This essay aims to address this problem. We will journey through 10 specific facts, a countdown, designed to bridge the divide. Our goal is not to dismiss difficult passages, rather, to place them within the larger story the Bible tells from Genesis to Revelation. By looking closely at the evidence, we will see the perceived chasm often comes from misunderstanding, context, genre, the progressive nature of God's self-revelation. The biblical narrative is not a story of two different gods. It is one consistent God revealing complex character over time, in different situations, through different voices. Our countdown begins not with a shocking twist, but with a foundational truth that is too often overlooked. The claim is simple yet profound. The Old Testament consistently and powerfully describes God as merciful. Many people imagine the God of Israel as a distant, stern lawgiver, but this is a caricature that ignores the Bible's own testimony. In one of the most significant moments in the entire Pentateuch, God reveals his personal character directly to Moses. This self-disclosure becomes a defining statement, echoed by prophets and psalmists. It is the bedrock of Israel's understanding, centered on grace and compassion. The specific passage is found in Exodus 34:6. After the golden calf, Moses pleads for God to remain with his people. God passes before Moses and proclaims his own name and nature. The Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. This is God's own self-disclosure, a portrait of a God inclined toward compassion, patient, reliable as the dawn. As we continue our countdown, we must confront a common misconception from the opposite direction. Just as the Old Testament is more merciful than assumed, the New Testament is more severe than many believe. Fact 9. The New Testament clearly demonstrates God's wrath against sin. Judgment is not an exclusively Old Testament concept. The apostles, in light of the resurrection, insist sin remains deadly serious. God's holiness and justice were not set aside by Jesus. They were satisfied through the cross. But for those who reject grace and persist in rebellion, judgment remains. Ananias and Sapphira lied about a gift. Their sudden deaths warned the nascent church. God opposes hypocrisy, dishonesty, and sin, also in the New Covenant community. Fact 8. Jesus himself delivers some of Scripture's most forceful warnings. He speaks of love, yet he warns of Gehenna more than any other figure. His words are sharp, direct, and uncompromising toward hypocrisy. He warns of outer darkness, where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. In Matthew 23, he calls leaders hypocrites, blind guides, a brood of vipers, pronouncing woes. Both testaments affirm God is loving and merciful, and also holy and just. His opposition to sin carries serious, even eternal consequences. Our seventh fact steps back into a very different world, the ancient Near East. Old Testament warfare accounts must be read in their historical and cultural context. Texts in Joshua and Deuteronomy describing the ban, harem, are the biggest source of the angry Old Testament God image. Ripped from context, they're misunderstood. These were specific historical judgments, not universal commands. Ancient warfare was brutal, and its language stylized and hyperbolic. Canaanite cultures are framed as morally and spiritually decayed. Israel's action as divine judgment, not random violence, targeted judgment to protect Israel from corruption and preserve the covenant line. Law and war reflect that era's realities, where survival and religious purity intertwined. Fact 6. Justice and mercy consistently appear together. They are not opposites but two sides of the same coin of God's perfect character. His justice means sin and evil are taken seriously and will not stand forever. His mercy means forgiveness, restoration, and relationship. Psalm 89. Righteousness and justice are God's foundation. Steadfast love and faithfulness go before him. The sacrificial system held justice and mercy together. Atonement needed, forgiveness provided. In the New Testament, they meet supremely at the cross. Justice satisfied, mercy displayed. Fact 5. The Bible reveals a continuous line of covenants, not disconnected promises, but chapters in one grand narrative. A covenant is a binding relationship. God covenants with Noah, God covenants with Abraham, with Moses and Israel, with King David. Each builds on the last, unfolding a global redemption plan. The New Testament fulfills, rather than abolishes. Through Abraham's offspring, all nations are blessed. Jesus is that offspring. By faith, the blessing spreads. Jeremiah's new covenant, inaugurated by Jesus, brings the heart change the law foreshadowed. Fact 4. Old Testament prophecy gives shape and substance to the New Testament. The New Testament constantly cites the law, the prophets, and the Psalms. Isaiah 53's suffering servant, pierced for our transgressions, seen fulfilled in Jesus' crucifixion. Prophets promised a Davidic king who brings healing and justice. Prophecy and fulfillment show Old Testament and New Testament are not in conflict. The Old Testament poses the question that Jesus answers. Fact 3. The Bible is a library of genres. We must read each by its style. History, poetry, law, prophecy, letters, apocalyptic. Each communicates truth differently. Misreading genre often misreads God's character. Fact 2. Progressive revelation. God revealed in stages across history. Earlier truths are foundational. Later truths expand and clarify. Old Testament sacrifices taught atonement. They pointed to Jesus' ultimate sacrifice. Fact 1. Jesus is the clearest, definitive picture of God's heart. In the past, God spoke by prophets. Now, by his Son. Jesus is the image of the invisible God. To see Jesus, his teachings, compassion, forgiveness, righteous anger, is to see God. Jesus said that anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. This is the key that unlocks the entire Bible. Read difficult Old Testament passages through the lens of Jesus, the ultimate interpreter. From Fact 10 to 1, we see not two deities but one consistent God, holy, just, merciful, faithful. He judges sin and makes a way for redemption, the story fulfilled in Christ. I hope this video answered many of your questions about the Old and New Testaments. Remember to subscribe. See you next time for another video.